Hey, how can I help you?
I have some antique penny banks here, and they're basically kids' toys. They're made out of cast iron.
You see, now, when I was like 10 years old, I would have been developing a system where I could actually shoot one of my brothers with a cannon.
The Cast Iron Catastrophe. How $16,000 in dreams turned to $100 in dust. Michael walked into the shop carrying what looked like a jackpot in a box 4 antique cast iron mechanical banks. The kind that dance, flip, and snap when you drop a coin in. These weren't toys. These were childhood relics from a bygone era, or so he claimed. With online listings boasting price tags up to $4,200 per piece, Michael thought he might walk out with a small fortune. But Rick? He saw something else. Maybe it was nostalgia, maybe it was a setup. Either way, something didn't sit right.
Banks are really fun, and there's definitely a market for them. They're almost in too good a shape. And you know what they say about things that are too good to be true? They're really neat. I mean, they've become really popular over the years.
At first glance, the banks were mesmerizing. Teddy Roosevelt popping from a stump, a dog wagging its tail, but that's the problem. They were too perfect. The colors? Fresh. The metal? Shiny. Rick leaned in, eyes narrowing. For items supposedly pushing 100 years, they looked like they'd been unboxed yesterday. And when Rick mentioned European reproductions flooding the market, the tension hit the ceiling. The old man delivered the line that said it all. If they're not reproductions, they're real nice. Translation? Buckle up. This could go south fast.
I'm telling this guy that you gotta see his house. It's ridiculous. He won't throw anything away.
Shut up, Rick.
So how much do you want for them?
Well, I looked around on the internet, and if they're real, they run from $800 to $4,200.
Then came the pricing. Michael threw down the same high numbers again. $800, $4,000, $200, maybe more. But this wasn't eBay. This was Vegas, and in this shop, talk is cheap unless the proof is ironclad. Basing real money on wishful thinking and inflated listings? That's a rookie move. Rick wasn't buying hype. He needed facts, and one wrong move could make a $16,000 dream vanish into smoke.
You got some old cast iron banks here.
Nice. Well, yeah, these molds went on forever and ever. I mean, some of these they made probably 15, 20 times. These are really, really popular pieces around the late 1800s. You know, they were inexpensive at the time. A lot of the times you could buy these in hardware stores, or just about any store you could imagine when they sold these.
Game over. Negotiations froze. Rick waved in the big gun Johnny, the vintage toy expert. In the pawn world, this is DEFCON 1. No more theories, no more sweet talk. Just cold, hard judgment. And once Johnny enters, there's no room left for hope. This wasn't just about toy banks anymore. It was about whether Michael had treasure or trash.
With these pieces, even the reproductions, there's not very many changes to them. But there are some indicators to look at. What you're looking for in the bottom, sometimes some of the trap doors where they kept the coins was different. Some of them, they actually had a little key to open them. They also have patent dates on some of these as well.
Johnny got surgical. No authentic patina, no proper stampings, no wear from decades of coin drops. The casting was all wrong. The trapdoors didn't match original blueprints. One by one, the signs stacked up, and then the hammer dropped. They were fakes. Not bad ones, but fakes nonetheless. The kind of knockoffs that look great on a shelf and worthless at the register. Just like that, the banks crumbled from collector's gold to decorative clutter.
I'll give you $100 for the batch of them.
You know, for that price, I'll just keep the memories and try to reduce my material clutter with something else.
Okay.
Okay, hey, thanks for coming by.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, I was pretty disappointed when he told me they were reproductions.
Michael stood there, the hope draining from his face. He nodded. Deep down, maybe he knew, but hearing it aloud still stung. Rick tossed a mercy offer, $100 for the whole lot. Michael declined, taking his box and walking out the door. Not with riches, but with a harsh dose of pawn shop reality. Online dreams are one thing. Real value? That's a whole different currency.
So I have a customer in the store with a painting that he says is painted by René Magritte. This thing actually might be real. So I'll do my art guy, I'm gonna have him take a look, and I got my fingers crossed.
The $10,000 Magritte Gamble that blew up in Rick's face. It started with a signature. A seller strolled into the shop holding what he claimed could be the crown jewel of surrealist art, a painting signed by René Magritte himself. Instantly, the room shifted. This wasn't some coin or vintage toy. This was potential millions on a single canvas. Rick, stunned but steady, knew this kind of find could rewrite the shop's history or burn it to the ground. He called in his art guy, Chad Sampson. The seller waited, hopeful. Rick braced for either a jackpot or a wipeout.
It looks very good. This is a very early painting. You can tell just by the smoke damage that's on it. Very typical of that time, everybody smoked. This hung for a very long time somewhere. The painting style is very, very him.
When Chad Sampson arrived, he didn't hold back. The style? Dead on. The brushwork? Spot on. The signature? Practically textbook. To Rick, it was starting to feel real, like really real. But then Chad dropped the bombshell. Magritte, in his leaner years, used to forge other artists, including Picasso. Suddenly, the irony hit hard. Could this be an original by a known forger? Chad pointed out the details. Smoke damage, period canvas, even the right pigment tones. But none of it mattered without one thing: official authentication from the Magritte Committee in Belgium. Without that stamp, it might as well be hotel art.
So this painting has two states of being. One state of being, it's worth nothing. The other state of being, this is a $700,000-800,000 paint. But the market is moving very, very quickly. A piece that was worth $800,000.
That's when the cliff appeared. If it's real, Rick could be staring at $800,000 or more. If not, the painting's worthless. No in between. It was the pawn shop version of Russian roulette with Rick holding the trigger. Worse still, the only way to find out was to ship it across the world and wait. No promises, no refunds, just a slow, expensive yes or no from a group of experts in Europe. Rick wasn't just buying a painting, he was buying uncertainty. And the price of that gamble? $10,000.
Waiting on the verdict from the Magritte. Hopefully, they'll verify it as real. In the meantime, a high-end customer I bought some stuff off a few years ago. Now he's got some really cool furniture. While we're here, we gotta take a look. There's a Louis XVI backgammon table.
Rick laid out the deal like a pro. Two options. A straight $10,000 cash offer. Rick takes all the risk. Or Rick pays for the authentication, and if it's legit, the seller gets $400,000. It was tension at its finest. In the end, the seller folded towards safety. He took the 10 grand and walked. Rick? He took the canvas and rolled the dice. Next thing you know, he and Chumley were hopping a flight to Belgium. Not just chasing the Magritte verdict, but also eyeing antique furniture worth nearly €1 million. It was shaping up to be Rick's most expensive European vacation yet.
You will find pieces like this only in museums.
So is there anything here to help you authenticate it?
The way it is done, and if you have a closer look to all the details, you will see that everything was done by hand. It's not made with a machine.
While the Magritte mystery hung in the air, Rick turned his focus to a side mission: antique French furniture with a royal pedigree, a Louis XVI backgammon table, a 1,691st cabinet stamped with the French crown, together priced at €825,000. Authenticator David Moran confirmed it all: genuine, valuable, and underpriced. This time, Rick was on solid ground. He sealed the deal. It was a win, no question, but the Magritte verdict still loomed like a dark cloud over an otherwise sunny deal.
Richard Harris, the committee met yesterday, is of the opinion that the work presented is not a work by René Magritte. Thank you.
So what do you think that means?
Then came the gut punch. Rick opened the sealed letter from the Magritte Committee right there in the park. One sentence, one verdict. Not authentic. Just like that, $10,000 vanished into thin air. No drama, no debate, just brutal finality. Rick didn't flinch. He's taken losses before, but even Chumley's comic relief couldn't soften the blow. That canvas, once full of promise, was now just expensive wall decor. In the pawn game, even the smartest bets can go up in smoke.
He's gonna love this. I'll tell you what, let's get it out of the parking lot. Come with me.
All right. I'm at the pawn shop today to try to sell my Shelby Donald Duck bicycle, all Disney collection. And when I saw this on an obscure website,
Rick Gets Quacked, the Disney bike disaster that cost him thousands. The Vegas heat sizzled off the pavement as a man named Pat rolled up with something no one expected: Donald Duck on wheels. He pulled a brightly colored Shelby bicycle out of his van, topped with a full-on duck head, beak and all. Pat, a Disney diehard, had bought it online on impulse and now wanted $3,000 to fund his next obsession, the elusive adult-sized version. He claimed it was a post-war collectible masterpiece. But in the pawn world, cute doesn't always mean cash, and Rick's radar was already twitching.
When he first made his appearance in Disney's animated short, Wise Little Hen, there, his career took off. By 1965, he was in over 100 movies or cartoons.
Back inside, Rick lit up at first sight of the bike. Chumley broke out the Disney trivia, explaining Donald Duck's peak in the late 40s and why the cranky bird once outshone Mickey himself. Rick added context, name-dropping Shelby's Lindy Flyer and praising their knack for themed bikes. He confirmed Donald's ride was a top seller in its time, but this wasn't just a nostalgia trip. Rick's eyes were scanning for cracks, rust, and red flags. The excitement was real, but so was the tension.
Needs to be restored because the colors are all screwed up there. We have to get the rear taillight re-chromed. And Donald Duck's face, I don't know if that's actually cracked or that's paint.
I like to think of that more as a quack.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Then came the first gut punch. The paint on the tank? Faded and possibly retouched. The chrome? Tarnished. But the biggest issue? A visible crack near Donald's eye, Pat tried to laugh it off. "That's just a quack." But Rick wasn't smiling. Chumley fiddled with a button, discovering the horn and lights. Pat claimed the duck used to quack and blink, but Rick wasn't buying it. With corrosion likely inside, the electronics were probably toast. Charm aside, this Disney dream was turning into a pricey fixer-upper, and that $3,000 tag started to look delusional.
Sold at big auction for $4,000. This one's in amazing shape, but there are some issues with it. I'll give you $1,500.
No, I don't think I can do that.
What's the best you can do?
I do 2,800.
$2,000? $2,000's a fair price.
You do 2,400.
Pat dug in. He reminded Rick that a flawless version sold for $4,000 years ago. But this wasn't that bike. Rick offered $1,500, citing restoration costs. Pat pushed back $2,800. Rick raised to $2,000. Still no deal. The tension crackled as both men stared each other down. Finally, Rick threw out his final number, $2,250, muttering, "I'm crazy at that price." Silence. Then Pat caved. Deal done. Rick had a plan. Clean it up, fix the flaws, and flip it for a fat profit. Or so he thought.
Hey, Rick. Good, man. That's what I called you about.
Shelby bike, Donald Duck.
It's 95% there, but they bring really good money when they're perfect.
First, I would give Donald some plastic surgery.
Rick hauled the bike to restoration pro Bob Uhas. Bob didn't sugarcoat it. Donald needed plastic surgery, new wiring, and a fresh coat of paint. The crack, the rust, the dead horn, it all had to go. He quoted $350 for the overhaul. Rick nodded without blinking. With a total investment of $2,600, Rick believed he was still in the green. Once restored, this bike could fetch up to $5,000. A vintage Disney cash cow reborn. But what Rick didn't know was that one tiny detail was about to destroy the whole plan.
Chum,
What's up?
check this out.
That's a Donald Duck bike? Rick, you never told me you were getting this thing fixed up.
Donald Duck's head is fine.
Did you get the horn to work? Of course. What about the eyes?
The bike came back stunning. Glossy paint, working lights, quacking horn. Donald had never looked better. Rick was ready to cash in until Bob dropped a bombshell. While checking the serial number, Bob discovered it began with 53. Translation? The bike was from 1953. The real Donald Duck Shelby bikes were made only in 1949. This wasn't a collectible, it was a tribute, maybe even a fake. Rick's face dropped. He'd sunk $2,600 into a bike worth maybe $1,000. A fake Donald Duck bike? He muttered, stunned. The irony? Devastating. Rick had gotten quacked, and not in the fun way.
How you doing?
Good.
What do you have here?
It's an aquatint etching by Moreau, Joan Moreau.
Okay, it looks really cool.
Definitely.
I really like Moreau. He's one of my favorite artists. Could be a kite.
The Miro Mirage. How a $12,000 art dream went up in smoke. When Henry strolled into the shop cradling a framed burst of surrealist color, it was clear this wasn't going to be another Civil War sword or vintage Rolex. He claimed the abstract artwork was a Joan Miro etching a genuine aquatint by one of the 20th century's surrealist legends. Chumley, channeling a gallery docent for a moment, called out Miro's subconscious mastery with a grin. But then came the real headline. Henry wanted $10,000. Just like that, the fine art talk took a hard pivot to cold, hard cash.
Thing is, even though his artwork is worth a lot of money, he's one of the most faked artists around from this period of time. Like, his signature is faked a lot. And I'm not a signature expert, but signature looks a little iffy to me. It kind of looks like stop and go, stop and go.
But just as the highbrow vibes were settling in, Chumley's instincts kicked in. Miro wasn't just a master, he was one of the most forged masters in the business. And the signature on Henry's piece? It didn't flow, it stuttered. The lines were stiff, the rhythm was off like someone copying Miro instead of being Miro. The doubts piled on fast, and Chumley knew exactly what had to happen next. Time to bring in the expert.
So how much do you want to get for it?
$12,000, that's what I was thinking. There was an art gallery downtown about 10 years ago that had similar etchings by Moreau, and they were selling anywhere between $40,000 and $70,000.
You know what? I can see this going for $12,000.
Then came the price. When Chumley asked what Henry wanted, he didn't blink. $12,000. He claimed he'd seen similar pieces sell for $40,000, maybe even $70,000 at a gallery a decade ago, somewhere downtown. The details were fuzzy. Worse still, Henry didn't even know the title or date of the piece. Chumley didn't dismiss the number outright, but the truth was obvious. Any value here lived and died by that signature. And right now, it was looking pretty shaky.
I would just like someone to come down and take a look at it. I got a art expert, Brett. He's dealt with Moreau's for a long time. So give me a few minutes and I'm gonna go call him.
Absolutely, sure. I'm a little nervous to hear what the expert has to say because I don't have a good baseline to know what it's worth, and I am also unsure if it's truly authentic.
With warning lights flashing, Chumley brought in Brett Maley, the shop's go-to art guru. Henry admitted he had no paperwork, no provenance, nothing concrete, just hope. Brett arrived calm and collected, praising Miro's legacy and skill. For a second, the energy in the room shifted. If Brett recognized the piece, maybe Henry wasn't dreaming after all. But the expert hadn't even looked closely yet. And everyone in the room knew, Miro or not, the signature was about to make or break this deal.
Yeah, I think what we have here is it's a mixed media print. I do see plate marks, which would be indicative of an engraving where they actually press the copper plate into the paper. You can see it kind of, the trace of it there.
Brett zoomed in. He confirmed the basics. The materials were legit, the technique solid. It looked like a real Miro print, a rare aquatint and engraving. But then, Brett's voice changed. He knew this exact piece. Demi-mondaine at her window. The signature and edition number? On authentic examples, they're in different places. Not here. Worse, the signature had that same stilted, hesitant feel. Final verdict? A genuine Miro print. Defaced by a forged signature? A would-be masterpiece, vandalized by a faker's pen.
Again, I can't say with 100% authenticity, but based on my experience with this particular work in Miro, I just see too many red flags to advise Chum to purchase it.
All right.
Sorry.
All right,
All right. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Thank you, Chum.
Yep, thanks for
All
coming
right.
in.
Have a good one, guys.
Brett didn't sugarcoat it. Forged signatures don't boost value, they destroy it. Like scribbling your name across a Babe Ruth card. Chumley took one last look and backed out. Deal dead. Henry, clearly disappointed, nodded in quiet defeat. That $12,000 payday? Gone. What remained was a decent piece of art with a fatal flaw, no value to collectors, no future in the shop. He'd keep it, he said, hang it on the wall, but every time he looked at it, he'd know the truth. He'd brought in a dream and left with a forgery.
Rick, I got something for you to look at.
All right, what have we got here?
We have a lithograph from Al Hirschfeld. As you can see, Charlie Chaplin.
Dude, I love Charlie Chaplin.
The Hirschfeld hustle, how a hot dog cane and timing almost sank the deal. It wasn't gold, silver, or samurai swords this time. It was framed, heavy, and needed Chumley's full body weight just to get through the door. Arlene brought in a sleek Al Hirschfeld lithograph featuring none other than Charlie Chaplin himself. Chumley, momentarily ditching broom duty, lit up like a film reel, gushing over his love for the tramp. Rick, watching from a distance, smelled something off, and it wasn't just procrastination. Arlene had paid $3,900 and now wanted to make a profit. In the pawn business, that's a plot twist waiting to go wrong.
And Al Hirschfeld died in January of '03. This was done in '02.
Doesn't really look like the inn. I mean, he's smelling a flower and he has a cane made of hot dogs.
Hot dogs. Really, Chum? He was a really interesting guy. He was really known for his playbills for all the plays on Broadway.
As Arlene rattled off the print's title, the end Chumley squinted at the image. Happy Chaplin, and a cane made out of hot dogs. Chumley is in the land of the bizarre. Rick, keeping the ship steady, stepped in with a history lesson. Hirschfeld wasn't just any illustrator, he was the Broadway caricaturist. From the New Yorker to the Times, his lines were legend. But beneath the quirky visuals, Rick was already calculating risk. Something about this felt personal, and that usually means overpriced.
So when did you buy this?
The day he died.
The day he died. All right, and how much you want for it?
$5,000.
All right, okay. I can tell you did like the massive card, the huge mega mistake with art. Never buy it on the day a guy dies.
Then came the clincher. Arlene admitted she bought the piece on the same day Hirschfeld died. Rick's face shifted instantly. That's the art market's version of buying stock the second it spikes. Emotional buying sentiment over strategy. And now, she wanted $5,000. Rick knew exactly what this was. A noble attempt to salvage a purchase made at peak hype. Good art, wrong timing. And in the pawn world, timing is everything.
This is the Hirschfeld.
Yes,
Very
the
nice.
one.
What do you think?
I like it. I like it. Charlie Chaplin, the little tramp,
The
walking
little
off.
tramp?
That's
Q expert Brett Mawley. One glance and he nailed it. A real Hirschfeld. Final edition print, limited run, titled The End, His Last Hurrah Before Passing. He spoke about Hirschfeld's ties to Chaplin, about legacy and technique, and laid down the gallery value, $4,000 to $6,000. Impressive, yes, but that's gallery pricing. And Arlene? She didn't have a gallery. She had Rick.
Thanks, man.
Hey,
You're the
Rick,
best.
always a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Chum. I think the real genius of Hirschfeld was just his ability to capture the essence of a performer quickly. And he captured it in a really loving, fun way that I think people responded to.
With the numbers out, the gloves came off. Rick started low, $2,000. Arlene fired back, $4,000. Rick calmly reminded her this wasn't Fifth Avenue. It was a pawn shop with overhead and margin. He climbed to $2,200. Arlene countered with $2,500, clinging to the bottom of the expert's range. It was a polite standoff retail dreams versus resale math. Rick held his ground.
I mean, I'll go 23.
How about I'm 25, you're 23, 24. We're both happy.
2,300 is what I could do.
Come on, just go up a little bit.
2,300 is the best I'm going to do.
Okay, well, if that's your best offer.
Rick inched up once more, $2,300. Final offer. Arlene hesitated, then dropped her guard. Okay, she said, surprising even Rick. Chumley swooped in to seal the paperwork, still pretending he'd swept the floor. Rick, meanwhile, looked over the print one last time. A real Hirschfeld. A fair price. A calculated risk just waiting on the right buyer to walk through the door. As always.
So what do we got here, man?
It's a swagger stick.
Cool. Civil War?
Civil War.
Okay.
Swagger stick is a symbol of power.
The swagger stick that swaggered a bit too hard. The man's name was George, and he came in holding what looked like an unassuming stick, but with the swagger of someone about to drop a Civil War bombshell. This wasn't driftwood, it was a military swagger stick, complete with a polished gold tip and a backstory soaked in battlefield drama. To hear George tell it, the stick had once been wielded by a Union general, hot on the heels of Confederate troops. Corey gave it the once-over, visibly intrigued. It had that classic relic feel, elegant, old, and definitely expensive looking. George was cool, calm, and already dreaming about a 5-figure payday.
I'm not even gonna try to read that. You know what it says?
I do know what it says. It says stolen by Brigadier General Palmer.
George leaned into the lore. He said he'd picked it up from a veteran's home, which added just the right amount of mystery. The gold cap, engraved. Not just a name and a date. No, this one had a story. Stolen by Brigadier General Palmer from General Wheeler. Stolen. That word didn't sit right. Civil War items don't usually brag about being swiped like candy from a store shelf. Corey raised an eyebrow. Something wasn't adding up.
Well, I first thought 20,000, but I'm willing to take as little as 16,000 for it.
Now fully in storyteller mode, George painted a picture straight out of a Civil War documentary. General Palmer chasing down Jefferson Davis, capturing General Wheeler, confiscating everything from his boots to his stick, and then apparently having stolen, etched right into the gold for good measure. That was the pitch. Then came the ask. $16,000. Yes, $16,000 for a stick. Corey blinked. You could almost hear the wheels turning.
Crop. But then again, I'm an expert, but I got a friend with a lot of swagger who is.
Corey didn't bite. Not yet. Sure, it looked cool. And yeah, it might have some value if the story held. But swagger sticks weren't exactly standard issue Civil War gear. And even if it was a riding crop, it didn't scream $16,000 relic. So Corey did what he does when the history gets murky. He called in the beard of knowledge himself, Mark Hall Patton.
A. Palmer. Unfortunately, that's not General Palmer. General Palmer was William.
Mark showed up with his signature hat and straight shooting style. He confirmed parts of the tale. Palmer, Wheeler, the Davis pursuit, all historically sound. But then he took a closer look. The initials. L.A. Palmer, not General William J. Palmer. The engraving? Sloppy, informal, and the word stolen? Nope. Mark was blunt. No officer would ever engrave that on captured property. It wasn't a Civil War artifact. It was a fancy riding crop with a bad case of identity theft.
I have a feeling you still believe this is an epic piece of Civil War history.
I definitely do.
All right. But
I won't do it.
And just like that, the fantasy collapsed. Corey offered a generous $1,000, more for the craftsmanship than the supposed pedigree. George refused, still clinging to the belief that history had been misread. But in the world of pawn, belief only goes so far. Without proof, even the boldest backstory is just that, a story. And sometimes a stick is just a stick.